The easiest way for you to make friends with the development team inside your company is for you to learn how to produce very good functional specifications. There is nothing that will make a friend out of a developer faster than if you hand them a functional specification that answers all of the questions that they are going to need to have answered for them to do their part of the work. And so in this video, I want to talk to you about some of the characteristics that good functional specifications should have. The very first of which is actually hinted at by this picture here, because what this picture shows you is a breakdown of an enterprise system, sometimes called a product or system, shows you the different layers that can exist inside of an enterprise system. And so for you to be able to produce good functional specifications, you have to make sure that you're looking at the system or the software from a developer's point of view, and developers always look at systems as a series of layers that are stacked on top of one another. As an analyst, you have to understand what those different layers are, and just as importantly, you have to have the right judgment to be able to choose the right layers that need to be described for certain types of functional specifications, and you need to have the ability to use the different ways of producing the functional specifications for the different aspects of that layer. All right, so understanding the layers of software or an enterprise system is a very critical aspect for most business analysts. For them, it's a prerequisite that you have to be able to produce good functional specifications. The second element that goes into producing good functional specification has to do with the level of depth or the level of details that you're capable of providing for each of the functional specifications that you produce. There are some developers out there who are not as keen at getting to the level of detail, to the field level or field length level of detail in some of the functional specifications. Meanwhile, other developers will not write a single line of code until you've given them all of the excruciating levels of detail that they are going to need to be able to do the work that they need to do. All right, so the second aspect of good functional specifications has to do with the level of depth or the detail that you provide in your functional specifications. Number three has to do with the use of language that you have. So when you're doing business requirements for your clients and you're trying to get them to agree on what the ask is, the type of language that you use to describe what the solution is going to look like to those stakeholders is very different than the type of language that you have to use to be able to produce your functional specifications, all right? In the business world, the language that they use affords a lot of ambiguity, or they can use language that to developers can seem like ambiguous language. And you have to understand that in a developer's world, every question that they ask or that they ask of you or of anybody else, the answers that you provide them have to eventually really boil down to yes or no. And there is very little room in between those two different answers for many of the questions that they have. Whereas in the business, there is a grayscale. And the language that you use in your business requirements is going to be reflecting that grayscale that exists in the business world that does not exist in the technical world. In the technical world, things are very clear cut, they're black and white, and your use of unambiguous language in your functional specifications is part of what's going to make those functional specifications good, okay? There has never in the history of software development been a situation where the developer said, I'm okay with you producing your functional specifications using ambiguous language, all right? That has never, ever happened in the history of software development. And it's highly unlikely that your project is the one where that trend is going to start. So you have to make sure that the language that you use in your functional specifications is clear cut, all right? The last element that I want to talk about has to do with the types of conflicts that can exist. And this is the type of thing that is especially possible the risks of it happening are especially more prone in projects that tend to get a little bit larger, or solutions that are a little bit larger, because what can sometimes happen is that you will detail out the specifications of a solution in one area or one component of, or one feature of a system. And then later on, you might be detailing out another component and not really realizing that some of the stuff that you're putting in a future specification actually conflicts with something that you may have put in an earlier specification, right? And so when you're delivering larger projects, especially piece by piece basis, you have to be very careful in making sure that you're not conflicting between what you're saying in this specification and what you may have said in a previous one. Now, some of that can be very difficult for an analyst to actually even predict, because it requires some conflicts require a lot of deep understanding of software development and enterprise systems, and some analysts just won't be able to get there regardless of what happens. So there's always a potential for conflict, but your aim as a business analyst, and as a business analyst especially who's striving to do better and better as time goes by, is to make sure that you have the ability to recognize where there could be potentially conflicts that arise between the different specifications that you're producing. All right. So again, these are by no means the definitive list of all the characteristics that your good functional specifications should have, but these are the things that I'm always keeping in mind when I'm producing my functional specifications, just based on the experience that I've had in working with multiple development teams throughout my business analysis career. All right. These are just some of the aspects that we're going to be talking about in the upcoming business requirements and functional specifications, right? So in that course, we're going to spend a full 3 weeks out of the 8 weeks. We're going to spend a full 3 weeks talking about functional specifications, and I'm going to make sure that the students that enroll into that course are well equipped to understand what good functional specifications look like and how they can go about making sure that they're answering all of the developers' questions as they are producing those functional specifications. And as always, the way that we're going to be learning that material is going to be through looking at multiple different examples of functional specifications that you can produce to describe different types of features or different aspects of an enterprise system. The basic facts about the course are laid out here. We're basically going to be looking at making sure that we limit the class size to about 10 students, because it is a live online session and I need to keep the class sizes manageable. And so I'm hoping that I can limit the students to about 10. There might be 11 or 12, maybe if there's a lot of interest, but really my goal is to make sure that we have a maximum of 10 students. The enrollment for the course is going to be opening up on the 5th, and the first lecture is going to be on Saturday, the 17th. And I'm going to be publishing a full FAQ inside of our community to answer a lot of the other questions that have been getting asked about the course. The schedule will be on there, and a lot of the other details around pricing and timing and format and everything else are going to be in there. So just make sure that you are paying attention to the announcement section inside of our community. That post will be coming up pretty soon.